is the Board of Directors meeting for May 20th, 2026. Roll call.
Board Member Brandstetter.
Here.
Board Member Bushdell is excused today. Board Member Casebolt. Board Member Denson. Maybe late, I think.
Could be.
Yep. Board Member Holm.
Here.
Board Member
Present.
Hubler. Board Member Holsey is excused today as well. Board Member King.
Excused right now.
Alternate lane for Board Member Mello. Vice Chair McGilligan.
Here.
And Chair Rumbaugh was online.
She is
We may have lost her for a moment.
Okay, she'll be back. She's out of town at this time, so that I'll be running the meeting from this point. With that, any public comment?
None today.
All right, approval of the agenda. Moved and seconded. Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? And now we're to the consent. Let's give member Mello time to get seated. Ryan, good to see you, bud. So we're now on the consent agenda.
Item number 1, approval of the minutes of the April 15th, 2026 Board of Directors meeting. Item number 2, motion 2026-16 to authorize approval of the purchase of a Nutanix network attached storage unit in an amount not to exceed $383,535 plus any applicable taxes. And item number 3, motion 2026-17 to authorize approval of the purchase of Cisco network equipment in an amount not to exceed $376,220 plus any applicable taxes.
Any comments? Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Committee is another report. That would be the Finance Committee. Janet?
Good morning. The Finance Committee met on May 4th this month with 2 items on the agenda. The first was the 2027 budget request. We received 4, so we had a quick review of those, and those will move forward to the PSCOC at their June meeting, excuse me. And the second item was cost allocation formulas, which is on today's agenda for further discussion. So happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Janet. Oh, excuse me, Michael.
Yeah, in the written report and the recap of the Finance Committee, it spoke about the committee discussed requests received by the May 1st deadline, which will be reviewed in June per the current. How many requests was that?
There were 4.
There were 4.
4 requests were received, yes.
And
those will all be
outrageous
reviewed.
total amount or a reason?
They range from 42,000 to 2.9 million. So one big one, and the other ones were fairly small.
Okay, so there's 4 possibles under the old system.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Janet.
Mhm.
Okay, next bylaws and charter. That would be Kendra.
Thank you. The Bylaws Committee met last on May 6, 2026. I will give an overview of our committee or our ad hoc committee meeting, and then our chair, Chair Hubler, if she would like to add anything, may do so. We spent a lot of time on the Finance Committee, for example, discussing how the chairperson of the board will recommend members for that Finance Committee for the board to vote on. In addition, we discussed whether or not the chair of the South Sound 911 board should always be a member of the Finance Committee as a standing committee. And we discussed whether there should be a term for Finance Committee. No decisions were made, and we will reconvene on June 3rd to have further discussions. We also did some administrative cleanup language around alternates, confirming the language where the alternate on the board should have a direct reporting relationship to the chief, for example, if they're in their stead. And we'll continue that cleanup language on our next meeting on June 3rd.
Thank you, Kendra. We are now down to staff reports, and we'll go to Executive Director, Mr. Yamamoto.
Good morning, members of the board, and recognizing Councilmember Denson has arrived for the record, so we even have more of a quorum now, so welcome. One announcement that I want to make, and we've been trying to do this as a board for a while now, no issue with this at all, is try to get the group photo. So the announcement is we're going to try again in June for the group photo, as long as everybody's here and available. And unfortunately, the illnesses and other things have kept us from being a total group so far this year. But June 17 again is we'll try for the group photo. So that can be canceled if worse comes to worse. For example, I got a message from Councilmember Hulsey this morning just saying he couldn't make it here because he's ill. So that's a possibility. If worse comes to worse, by the end of the year, we'll just have to end up doing individual photos. But it's kind of a cool thing to be able to get you folks in a historical way to all be in the same photograph. It's kind of cool.
And
Okay.
smiling,
Yes.
and smiling.
Yes. I'll start out my report just by going over a couple of Heroes Wear Headsets scenarios. I would say the sort of theme today is there's a wide range of calls that are taken by the folks that work the line here. And we have two different kinds today that I'll talk to you about. One is a possible suicide of a public servant, and the other is an infant in distress. The first one, suicidal public servant, obviously we don't identify who that person is or any information about them, so we'll just talk about it in the abstract. But I'll read the report that was supplied by the managers downstairs. As public safety professionals, it can be sometimes difficult to be the one who asks for help. And so on an early day in April, Michaela Ewell and Allison Cobb answered calls from a fellow public safety professional who was in crisis and was contemplating ending their life. Michaela and Allison immediately recognized the seriousness of the situation and responded with empathy and care. I think their professionalism rose up immediately. They not only ensured the safety of the caller and provided support, but they remained, even though they were gathering information and so forth, their empathy remained high and ultimately helped achieve a positive outcome for the caller. So without a whole lot of details, I think a lot of the folks that have been in the public safety industry can recognize that the subject matter is so grave and so heavy, it can be weighty even among the strongest. And so when we can help there, we feel good about that. Infant CPR situation involving a lot of folks, Miles Steyer, Serena Summers, Amber Trowbridge, Whitney Faircloth, Giselle Galkey, Nick Nukwe, and Fire Supervisor Chris Connor. So a whole range of folks got involved in this incident. So on April 25, Miles Steyer receives a call, and that's the kind of call where you can tell the situation is extraordinarily heightened because a family is in extreme distress. Their infant child is not breathing. So throughout that scenario, the staff responded with compassion and calmness. They were professional. They helped sort through the confusion with the family. Miles quickly entered the call for service. The dispatchers, Serena Summer, Whitney Faircloth, and Amber Trowbridge, Giselle Galkey, Nick Nukwe, and Chris Connor immediately began coordinating the rapid response of law enforcement, fire, EMS personnel, and they worked together seamlessly under that intense pressure because there's only a little bit of time, as we all know, when a human being stops breathing before significant damage occurs. So they were able to coordinate a rapid response, and good news, infant is recovering and seems to be doing fine. So once again, I thank our staff for the high professionalism, recognizing the seriousness of the situation and coordinating a rapid response. So thank you very much to our staff. I appreciate all the folks who can remain calm under pressure. Okay, so switching gears a little bit here. One of the topics that we've been visiting this year is what we've frequently called cost allocations, or more accurately, communication assessments. I have 3 slides that I just wanted to walk through with you. I'm going to test this to see how I do. What was that, Jamie? Sorry. Oh, that's okay. All right, so let's see. If I get this forward or back. Maybe some expert can tell me. Oh, we can just go. All right. So will you switch to the red slide, Jamie? Perfect. Yeah. So this is what we refer to as the cost allocation formula for fire. What we're showing here is the red language is the only language that's actually formally adopted in the resolution in 2019. The green portions are not adopted, but they're actually part of the formula. So you can see the 2 green bullet points: annual decreases not to exceed 7%, increases not to exceed 7%. Ooh, check this out. It kind of shows up. Doesn't quite show up. Thank you. Those 2 bullet points are actually part of the formula or part of the calculus and have never been formally adopted, but they're being used. So at the very least, we need to refresh or readopt that formula with those 2 factors in it. You could see the numbers on the side, $1,300 and $2,600. Those are just extrapolations of those calculations there. Fire, as you can see, actually has a very steady, sort of solid way of calculating the communication assessment. 70% calls for service and 30% AV. The AV sort of represents, hey, there's more buildings built out on this property. And so when properties have more buildings or structures on them, there's a higher likelihood that fire service will attend to that. It's been a pretty steady formula over the years, and I don't think the fire folks are much interested in evolving it, but they're welcome to if they so desire. Nonetheless, we need to include everything that's in the formula. And I'll say one other thing. What we're seeing here is not actually a formula. All we're doing is identifying the key variables in the formula. I would suggest that we also lay out the actual calculus, the actual formula itself, when we readopt these or update these. Okay, so let's head to blue slide, Jamie. Okay, blue slide is the law slide or law enforcement slide. Again, same thing, only the blue text has ever been adopted, and that was in the 2019 resolution. Anything that's in green has never been formally adopted. The little sort of blue square up at the top between CFS and CAD, I noticed there's a disparity, or maybe a distinction between the two. They might not mean anything different in the formula, but I think we should just clarify, do we mean calls for service data or do we mean CAD data there? Then down below again, the smoothing factors of no increases beyond 7 and no decreases lower than 4%, those should actually be adopted into the formula as well. And then here's some strange ones. And this should get your attention, and we should do something about this. The communication assessment formula or attribution to law also includes disclosure and booking. Disclosure is a word here that's sort of misleading. All the rest of the jurisdictions in the world seem to call it call it public records request. That's what it is. We use the word disclosure here because I think it stems from a collective bargaining agreement. But disclosure is fundamentally public records. In a city, you would have typically a city clerk with a staff that works through public records. That's what that is. And then we also have a booking function that was, when this agency was compiled, and I use that word intentionally, not designed, when it was compiled or things were brought together, booking was also a function that was imposed upon the organization as well. So as you can see, there are 5.5 FTEs in public records people that are associated with this. Should law be paying all of that? And booking also associated with that. We seriously need to examine those 5 FTEs and whether or not that's a function that should even be here. Okay. Third slide, JB. Black slide, RMS. Okay. So then we also have a records management system. All law and all Pierce County Police Department Transit PD are a part of that system. Right now, the key variable that's used in that is commissioned officers on a 3-year average. That's potentially okay. Then we have optional services that exist here that some agencies use and others don't. By the way, all of this slide, none of these have ever been formally adopted. There is no resolution, so these are being used behind the scenes. But I've been saying early on when we address this topic, we need to elevate these. You folks need to know what they are, and you need to put your stamp of approval on them. Okay, so we also have a permitting function. That's based on the population. We're not necessarily sure that that's a fair way to do it. The bulk of permitting that's done here, although it includes strange things such as forced practices permits, the bulk of permitting is concealed pistol licenses. And so if you think about it, a person that lives in a city under law has a right to go to the top official, get a license in the city, a CPL, and they can also come here to a not necessarily a city facility and get a license as well. A person that lives in the county, in theory, can't go to a city, in theory, get a license. And so there's probably a tilt because it's purely based on population, and we probably need to think that through a bit further. We also have a big records function here. There are 19 agencies. I think 10 or 9 are part of that in deeper degree or not. Again, the key variable is based on commissioned officers on a 3-year average. Then probably the most problematic one and needs some serious sorting through is a warrants function that we serve. That is also based on commissioned officers on a 3-year average. And there's also fugitive transports associated with that. So we need some work here. We need to make sure the key variables in these formulas fit from a policy standpoint, a fair way of distributing the costs. And we need to work through those again. And ultimately, whatever you folks decide in the key policy areas here should be adopted in a resolution. It should be absolutely transparent. None of this should be hidden away in a spreadsheet, in a finance spreadsheet or anything like that. We should know what they are. And a couple of things that occur to me is, by the way, I wanted to describe procedure a little bit just to remind folks. Again, I'm going a little bit deeper here, showing you what we're going to actually be looking at in these cost allocation formulas or assessment formulas more accurately. After this hearing, we'll go back down to PSCOC, go through a PSCOC process because we expect to get very substantive input back from PSCOC on these formulas, and then bring them back to you again for your consideration, probably in July and August. So this is more a way of saying we don't just have 2 formulas here, we probably have 8-ish or more, and we need to elevate them and formally adopt them. One thing that I've been thinking about, though, is, first of all, Chair Rumbaugh had suggested that there be a joint study session, and I think that's a very good idea involving PSCOC and the board, and perhaps in July or August, we have a joint study session specifically on the topic of cost allocation formulas. I think the chair was suggesting that type of combined conversation or discussion about this would be very helpful. And then one other thing I want to add into this is, even once we land on the key variables from a policy standpoint, it might be a good idea for some of our at least larger partner agencies to also involve their finance directors so that we have some outside perspective to check, hey, this formula is going to work from this perspective. Yes, as long as it checks up with the partner agencies' finance directors, then we have a much more solid system, not just making those decisions internally. Okay, so that's a lot of work that we're doing on the cost assessment formulas. That is going to come back to you in July at least. All right.
That's it. Do we have, Sarah, are you available? What we do have, Kevin, we actually do have a motion here to change the, what we call reimbursement to cost allocation right now.
No, that's the next item on the agenda, and I'll get there shortly, Mr. Chair.
Michael?
Yes, I guess that I would say some of these practices in the cost allocation thing, which are a combination, as you noted, of board-approved formulas and then practices of what to do with the numbers when the formula generates a number, to be able to go and do that, such as the adjustments for increases and things. But there were also some elements in some of the formulas that are the way that they are because back in the time when they were adopted, certain kinds of data that might have been more valuable weren't necessarily readily available to capture. And so when you come back to us, it's not just a question of that, but maybe with some information about in the current technology status, what data is really available to consider, including in the formula or not, and that you have a very aggressive timeline for something that took 7 months, nearly a decade ago to come up with. So I'm optimistic about it not being a single study session.
Councilmember Brandstetter's comments are super well taken. First of all, on the timing of it, it is, I'll say optimistic that we may be able to get to a consensus by a July or an August meeting. I agree. This discussion may extend further than that. Councilmember Brandstetter's remembering all the effort and the process that we went through. It's not necessarily easy or fast. And then Councilmember Brandstetter's, talking about a key factor here of, when we were setting up these formulas, we didn't have a data set. We hadn't, the agency hadn't started yet, so we couldn't rely on a data set in order to figure out how to apportion some of these costs. And so we had to use modeling that was not a sort of a best guess, but our best thinking on variables into the future. Now that we have a data set, we may be able to move away from some of those more squishy types of variables and just rely on a data set. In other words, who's using this service the most? Who's using it the least? We have years of data on that now. So point is super well taken.
Thank you, Michael. Some of the things that we discussed earlier was one of the things that we do transports, or we're picking up the cost for transport, and it's like, okay, how do we align that with South Sound 911 emergency? And I think that's what we're looking at right now, is trying to clean up a policy so it makes it clear to people on how, for allocation purposes, we can get there. But there's also some things that in the beginning, as Michael said, was thrown in there to say, okay, this is what we agree to right now so we can move ahead. And now we have some time, we got history, and we got data.
Yes.
So, and that's what we're moving towards right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair McElligott, just for those who don't know, is referring to, I used the word earlier when I said this agency was compiled rather than designed. And I'm saying compiled because that's a nicer word. When we all came together, every agency sort of had its certain conditions. I'm only going to join if I get this, this, and this. And in order to accommodate everybody joining, various bodies of work came along into the organization that may or may not necessarily should be here. And so what Vice Chair McElligott is referring to is we need to examine the bodies of work that exist in the agency and decide whether or not they should continue to be in the agency. Vice Chair McElligott is referring specifically to, should we be involved in fugitive transports, specialized function? Maybe that should be in the prosecutor's office. Should we continue to do The booking function, shouldn't that really just be reassociated in a neutral way as possible back with the jail? All those kind of things could be considered. I doubt any of us would design the organization the way it is right now. And now, because we're not at a starting status any longer, and we have a standalone Public Development Authority Corporation, you folks can decide what the body of work is. Obviously, that shouldn't be rash. There should be no shoves. If we're going to move bodies of work around, those need to be done in concert with our partner agencies. But it really does impact the overall sort of bottom line of what we do. If we do a bunch of specialized services, our administration has to be more sophisticated. We have to have more layers of complexity over the organization. If we shrink it and simplify it, it becomes a less expensive, less administrative effort is necessary over the organization. That's the general thinking here. So, not to make decisions on any of this today, but that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking at cost allocation formulas or assessment formulas, and we will talk about associated bodies of work. In fact, Chair Rumbaugh had asked for a graphic, and that's what we're preparing. We'll show you visually what the organization looks like from a bodies of work standpoint, and that'll make it easier for you folks to do your work with that.
And as I say, I mean, one of the things that we started off in November, moved it to, I think it was March. So we're not trying to force anything.
No.
We're going to give everybody enough time to look at this to make sure that we're aligning ourselves on how we want the operation to run from this point on. Sarah, did you have anything else?
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you so much for running the meeting since I'm not right in the room. I just want to say that I think when we make decisions moving forward, it's on the idea that we all are trying to work together. And as everyone has said in the room, you know, we were put together and now we're working together. And so it makes it different what we're doing. So I think it's good to be looking at the body of work that we do and deciding if it fits with South Sound 911. So some of these functions just don't seem like they belong here. And so I feel like it's Sesame Street. And so the opportunity to kind of look at everything and decide where should it actually live. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I hope that I appreciate that there's so much history in the room. This is when I'm so happy that Councilmember Brandstetter is here and that we have Vice Chair, because they were here from the beginning and they can tell us why it was like that. But then we can talk to ourselves about why does it make sense that we're doing it. So I look forward to this conversation. I don't think it will be one meeting. It may take a few meetings, and I appreciate everyone's support in talking about things that I think in the past might have been difficult to open up, but I don't think it's like that anymore. And I really appreciate that everyone is on the same page about talking about what the future of South Sound 911 should look like. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing further in the report section, Mr. Chair.
Any comments? Seeing none. We have one more thing, Sarah. The next item is the chair comments. Do you have anything else? Okay, moving on to action items. So I was trying to keep you from leaving the podium there, buddy. So, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The next item that we have is a proposed resolution which just evolves the old, what we call the reimbursement policy, to a budget request procedure. The notion fundamentally is that, or the word reimbursement suggests that there's some kind of pile of money or available monies that are just sitting around so folks can submit requests for that, is misleading. And then most fundamentally, the way the reimbursement policy is set up seems to skip over probably the most important folks that control money in the organization, and that's the elected board. And so what I've proposed is an evolved policy. In other words, repeal the reimbursement policy and replace it with a budget request policy. The key components of the budget request policy are, number one, you must involve a board member if you're seeking a request. And if by you, I mean a partner agency. So if a partner agency wants some sort of allocation or some sort of benefit during the budget process, they need to contact a board member. It does not have to be the board member in their a jurisdiction or associated jurisdiction. It can be any board member that chooses to be a sponsor. Then that information, the proposal comes to the administration. The administration reviews it. There's also a PSCOC review, just like the old policy, and a finance committee review. Ultimately, then that proposal is considered as part of the whole during the budget process of South Sound 911. The board member that sponsored the item does not have to vote in favor of it, so they can vote for it or against it. But really, the point of the policy is to channel it through the board and then into the budget consideration process every year, rather than sort of having a separate reimbursement process, which creates a whole nother, shall we say, spinning branch that doesn't need to exist. So I'm happy to entertain questions about it. I included the little comparison table that I provided previously. That's on page 29. Shows you in color, the green is the budget request proposal, and then yellow and orange are the existing reimbursement policy routes. There's 2 of them. If you need to see that visually, look at page 29 in your packet. And then the proposed resolution starts on page 24. Questions, comments, thoughts?
People all understand what we're getting ready to do? Repealing one? Michael?
So I'm trying to follow the sequence
Mhm.
of the pages in the packet. And there is a resolution that is designed to have a budget request
That's right.
policy to be able to go that, and it runs through page 26.
Yes.
And then on page 27, there is data on the reimbursement policy.
Yeah, so 27 should
And
be the
it's
existing
27,
policy.
is that for information about what is current?
Yeah, so
So-
27
But
is,
that's not what we're approving.
yeah, correct. I want to make sure, though, everybody's packet on page 27, does that everybody show the reimbursement policy? Yes. Okay, so the 27 is the old policy or the existing policy reimbursement. 24 is the proposed new policy.
So I guess in the envision new policy, that there is an importance of the what is a partner agency? And that we have a board that represents specific agencies, both fire and things to do that. On the fire side, the representation is there's a couple of districts, and then there is a representative that talks about and all the other fire entities in the county. Are all those other fire entities considered partner agencies? I think that some definition of partner agency would have been helpful to be able to go and do that, because we also then have in the past funded some things like with the State Patrol or with JBLM to be able to go and do that, that were requests of this nature, but that seem to be still remain outside of this policy, or as it's worded, or of deciding who to do that. And for instance, would a JBLM request require a board member to advocate for it, or something to do that? So it seems to be the process seems good. It's just not clear about who all can make an ask.
point is, the point that Councilmember Brandstetter is making is a key term that we use under, I'll show you, under the old reimbursement policy, if you'll switch to page 27 and look at that first line under the policy, South Sound 911 may reimburse partner agencies and public safety answering points. And so I think maybe JBLM came under the PSAP portion, the public safety answering point of the old policy. Nonetheless, I don't have a strong position on this. I looked at the terms, I think under our charter, the word or the phrase that's used there is contract agency. Kendra's nodding yes to that. I think the intent of the policy is to be a bit broader than the contract agency concept. And so I just left partner agency in there from the old policy. We can dial that in, absolutely, if we want to. But I'll tell you, the control mechanism is if no sponsor on the board wants to support the request, then it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, I acknowledge that, and that in the past, some of those expenditures have come to the board in the budget process, having been not sponsored, but having been vetted by staff in terms of being able to go and do that. So I would just say that becomes vague. I recall we had some times when we had to do some things with the national park folks out in Mount Rainier, where they were their status to do that, but that the idea was they were within Pierce County, and so we felt that we should. There were 911 services within Pierce County that are being handled by people who weren't actually going to do that, and it's just a matter of clarification. And then could you just describe what the vision of what sponsoring looks like? You know, is that at a board meeting, a board member such as I just saying, I sponsor this request by the city of Steilacoom. Okay, or is it a more formal, a piece of paper, or
Yeah, so in answer to your question, if you look at page 25C, the budget request can't just be the scenario where somebody shows up at a meeting and says, hey, I'd like, $1 million for this or that, and then a board member immediately says, I'm the sponsor. C requires it to be in writing and fully explained so that we can properly process it. So not only is that written application or documentation going to go through an internal review, which we would call the administrative review, but it's also going to go make its way through PSCOC and the finance committee. So a partner agency showing up on the day of a budget approval meeting and then immediately obtaining a sponsor would totally undermine the process. And so that would be inconsistent with the policy and not likely to happen.
And then I guess my other question is, why is South Sound 911 revenue from the excise tax excluded from the policy? In practice, we have revenue sources of excise tax. We have the sales tax. We have allocation costs to be able to go and do that. And when we approve expenditures, they may come from one or the other to be able to go and do that. But it's the dollars aren't clearly earmarked or have to be from one of those as long as the whole budget balances. And there are some requests that would come in that previously before we absorb the function from the county's emergency management folks and thus receive the excise tax revenue, that were the kind of things that would have been funded by then. And since we've taken on that role, using excise tax revenue to fund a request would make sense if it was the kind of thing that excise tax would have funded 8 years ago. So while it all has to be funded out of the budget, specifically saying that these requests are for sales tax dollars, it would seem that's not really the thing, because if we use sales tax dollars for something, then we'll just be spending into in some cases increasing allocation costs to make the budget balance. And so when we get this on the board, I would actually propose to move to just remove the references to that that the sales tax is the only revenue that can fund one of these allocations. It just needs to be funded out of South Sound 911's budget, wherever the money came from.
Councilmember Ranstetter, from an administrative standpoint, I have no objection to removing any sort of reference to what types of funds are used under the policy. Nonetheless, I was trying to be conservative in my approach, and under the existing reimbursement policy, you'll notice the language is South Sound may reimburse partner agencies and PSAPs in Pierce County from the 0.1% emergency communications sales tax. And so just because the reimbursement policy originally limited itself to sales tax, that's what I did as well.
Thank you.
We don't have to have it there at all. It can be removed.
What we're talking about is baby steps right now. So, Chief Engel?
Thank you, Chair. Kevin, just a quick question. If a reimbursement request comes through, it goes to the elected official, it gets itself into the budgetary process. Where does South Sound see the line for who owns that piece of equipment? If tax dollars are used for that and they're coming from South Sound, is South Sound exerting ownership over the piece of equipment, or is it the agency or entity that requested it that will be the owner of that piece of equipment?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Chief Engel. I think it depends entirely on the nature of the request, because I can envision a type of request that's very similar to a grant. Here's some dollars that might go over to a JBLM for a phone system or WSP for a phone system. They own that equipment. They maintain it, operate, upgrade. There may be a type of proposal where the proposal still has a use and a function both with South Sound 911 and the partner agency. And so then that would have to be part of the consideration: who should own the equipment, who should be responsible for it, and so forth. So it really depends on the nature of the request.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Executive Mello?
Thanks, Vice Chair McGill. When the resolution comes before us, I plan on supporting it, and I appreciate I think it is an improvement in the current work. So thank you for the work on that. I would ask the board, whether it be through our finance committee or some other process, I think we would be well served to take a step back at sometime in the future to have a strategic conversation about what is the budget policy of this organization. Should we, and I don't have a predetermined decision yet, but I think we should be thinking about, from a budgetary perspective, do we want to be in the business of being a granting agency to help folks do these one-off projects? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Or do we want any of the funds that would be set aside or be made available for these one-off projects? The other option I can think of is it will continue to drive down our cost allocation costs so that it's less of cost allocation to all of our agencies and more of the other funding sources are funding the work. So not for today. I think the policy in front of us is an improvement of the current procedure, and I appreciate that. I do think we should have a strategic budgetary conversation in the future about, do we want to be in the business of or reserving significant amount of money, however you define significant amount of money, for one-off projects. I worry about equity, who's getting in line to do this, who knows about this, so there's lots of, I just think, considerations for us to think about in the use of our available resources, and what is more equitable, what is the best use of our limited resources, and what business should we be in? Thank you.
Great observation. As I say, this is the first steps of moving forward into the organization and trying to clear up some things that we need to clear up. So I appreciate your time, and that's why I asked for more discussion on it, because this is a, even though it's a baby step, it's a huge break off on what we've been doing before, and this is the beginning. And I like what Executive Mello said, was have a plan on what we're going to do as we move forward too. So with that, I'd go for a yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't see Robin. You're waiting.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I concur with the comments of the executive. And I think one of the positives of taking this step forward, even though it's not comprehensive of all the changes we're considering, it's a positive step forward. It makes a lot of reasonable sense, but it's opening up some of these conversations that we can have at the Finance Committee. But I think before we have that conversation at the Finance Committee, I would love for it to be brought to PSCOC for their consideration, because it really impacts all the agencies and how they're used to requesting funds for different things and all of that. So maybe once they get through the cost allocation discussion, which is a big one, they can have this broader conversation about whether we should have this pot of money and what it, or if we should, what it should be used for, and how we can make sure that's equitable. And then it can come to the Finance Committee, and we look forward to having that conversation. So I am supportive of this motion as well. Thank you.
We did run it through PSCOC, and if you want to hear from either Chief Engel or Chief McGrady about that, you're welcome to. I think, I won't speak for them, but my sense is they recognize this as a board policy. It's not actually their policy. So I sense some degree of deference there, but they could speak for themselves.
We, as on Monday through Chair Rumbaugh also, this has been discussed. I just wanted to bring it out in this group right now. Exactly what you said is going to happen, because without PSOC, we cannot get what we need, because they're the organization that needs where the money is going to be spent. So with that said, I think great discussion, and I'm looking for a motion for 2026-06.
I move adoption of resolution number 2026-06.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, excuse me, Michael.
Yeah, let me just say that while I think that there are things to work out, and I think that the financial policies that drive our budget predate the charter, that it's time to take a look at that document to be able to go and do that, to address concerns about where we are, and to put some guardrails around mission creep. That's true for the allocation discussion as well as other things. But I think that the real strength of this resolution is that it moves from reimbursement to justify a need and a request, because the reimbursement policy that we are under favored agencies whose finances were more healthy, who were able to spend the money and then ask for it back, as opposed to having a need but also not having the money. And our old policy wouldn't be able to help in those situations. So I think that this is going forward and will allow us to more closely evaluate money against real needs of agencies of all sizes.
I like your determination of spending the money first and asking for it later, because when I tried that with my budget director at home, she always told me, you ain't spending it. So I understand that. With that said, we have a motion. All in favor of 2026-06, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the time. Michael, thank you for your input. And I think everything is, I like our momentum. So I think that's going to be a good thing. At this time, we are going to go into executive session. Starting time is 9:50. The South Sound 911 Board of Directors will now meet in executive session to discuss litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, subset 1, subset I. The board will be in executive session until 10:30 a.m. p.m., which will be a.m., I hope. And there may be action after, once we come back at 10:30. So we are going to recess upstairs. So everybody can stay here. And then once we come back down, if there is anything, we'll bring it forward at that time. So thank you very much. And we'll move the people from there upstairs. Okay. Well, I'll just go. Oh my God, we're going. It's good. Yeah. Yeah. The auditor's not gonna give a shit. And the auditor doesn't give a shit. How much time we got? Are we back?
At 10:30, so you can give it,
Okay, I'll wait until it says recording. Do we have everybody back in the room? We're missing, Robin's not here right now. That'll be soon. Marlena's gone. We cannot start this meeting without Marlena. Everybody else can be gone, but there's one person we can't do without. Okay. If she's not, we'll fine her. I think I know exactly the amount we're gonna fine her too. Well, I guess we can go. Recording? Okay. Oh, here she comes. Should I do the motion?
You're gonna reconvene to the board. So anyone is back in session, so you've got all
Yeah.
that. And we can make
I can
a
decide.
motion.
I want to do it. Okay. We're now back from the executive session and we're back in session for the South Sound 911 board. At this time, I have a motion to make. The motion is a dispute about the use of 911 excise tax revenue arose between the parties. The dispute is related to the June of 2025 audit finding of the Washington State Auditor. Within the auditor found that Pierce County diverted 911 excise revenues and recommended repayment of such revenues. The parties of this dispute have negotiated a settlement. Accordingly, I move to authorize South Sound 911 through its administrative to settle dispute with Pierce County by accepting payment in the amount of $2,324,820, subject to a written settlement agreement, which shall be approved as to form and substance by council for the South Sound 911 board. Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none at this time, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Seeing none? Thank you very much. Thank you, Pierce County. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, John. And all the work that was put into this. It was a subject that needed to be cleared up. And I'm glad that we were able to move forward and get this behind us now. This is a good move for us. And as we speak, as we go forward, this is good for the county. And I appreciate the time. I think if Sarah was here, she'd be saying the exact same thing. And so thank you very much. And with that, we have any further announcements? Before we do anything else, we have good of the order. Huh? Yes. we have good at your, Executive, Mello?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Gavitt. I too add my gratitude for the board and the organization working through that longstanding issue. Thank you for the partnership and the ongoing important work that we do together. I wanted to just note under good of the order, I wanted to extend an invitation to everyone here, your team here, Kevin, anyone else listening. Sheriff Swank and Chief Engel and I are hosting a First Responders Memorial Law Enforcement Remembrance event next Wednesday, May 27th at the County City Building. There is a First Responders Memorial at the County City Building on the second floor entrance on the Yakima Avenue side entrance of the County City Building. If you don't know, we have a First Responders Memorial there. Every first responder who has lost their life in the line of duty, their name is etched into that wall. And at this event, we'll be revealing the name of Washington State Trooper Tara Marissa Gooding, who lost her life about a year ago on watch. So again, Sheriff Swank, myself, and Chief Engel on behalf of the Pierce County Police Chiefs Association will be hosting the Law Enforcement Remembrance event, Wednesday, May 27th, 10 a.m. Everyone is welcome, and we'll be just creating a simple opportunity to remember her service and also remember everyone else who's given of their service to this community to help keep us safe. So we can follow up and make sure that Kevin
Please.
has the information to get it out easily to folks. If folks want to join us for the event, we'd love to have you.
If you wouldn't mind putting it on an email for us, for the board?
Happy to do so.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? I'll second it, okay? Like Carrie did. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed may stay around and talk to Kevin. So thank you very much. Good job, everybody. Thank you.